Hello, my name is John Reynolds. On this episode of Extraordinary Life Stories, I'm talking with former England and Harlequins rugby legend Chris Robshaw. Chris earned 66 caps playing for England and captained his country 42 times, a record in the professional era. He made 300 appearances for Harlequins, helping them win their first ever Premiership title in 2012 and winning Premiership Player of the Year in 2009 and 2012. Chris has been used to having targets and goals with structure in place around him all his career. How does he enjoy life without the rigid structures of his playing days? What's his next challenge, alongside the challenge of parenting? Let's find out. I'm really looking forward to talking with Chris. Chris, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
Tell me, who's Chris Robshaw?
Who's Chris Robshaw? Good question. And you know what, I don't think anyone's ever asked me that.
I'm glad I'm the first.
Yeah. Look, for myself, I was as a kid, a dyslexic, shy little kid, very introverted.
Yep.
And then obviously rugby became my happy place, it became my escape. And sport in particular is a place I gained confidence. Going on through school, managed to get picked up by Harlequins, captain my boyhood club, win with stuff, and then of course, very luckily and honoured to captain England. So yeah, as a former England and Harlequins captain, with a little experience over in San Diego, now in my second chapter and stage of life, or possibly third stage of life, but second working chapter. Still trying to find out what that answer is, but no, there's a lot.
Aren't we all?
Well, exactly, and that's what people say. I don't think you ever find out what's going on and how to do. But yeah, as a former life, I love my rugby days. It's now trying to find out what's your identity.
Yes, I want to cover that as well, because that moment you, but let's do it now. When you actually ultimately hung up the boots, did you have that moment where, oh my God, this isn't what I do anymore, and it's what you've done your whole life pretty much? Yeah,
so look, I left Harlequins. I made the decision to leave Harlequins at the age of 34. Yeah. I had the option to do another year. And I thought, you know what, I'm 34 now, I'm the oldest back row by 8 years, and I'm starting to get caught up. I'm getting caught up, and I know I'm not quite the player I was. And I didn't want to slip into the back and be a bit-time player, and there's no disrespect for that, but I didn't want that. I'd started since the age of 20. Yeah. I played pretty much every game kind of since then. Yeah. So I thought, you know what, I want to go off and experience something. Being dyslexic, I didn't really want to go to France or Japan, where I thought, you know what, I'd struggle with the language. Mm-hmm. So I thought, why not try America? So I went to San Diego. Yeah. And over there, look, the rugby was fine, but it was very much about a lifestyle. I was a couple of minutes from the beach, and for me, the ocean's a massive escape. Like mentally, it's a good... I
resonate with that.
Yeah, and I'll just go and sit there sometimes after training, even on my own, sometimes with my wife, my son. I just have half an hour there, just on my own, like instead of sitting in an ice bath in a wheelie bin, go in the ocean. Yeah. See dolphins go past, and mentally, because also over there you were playing in front of, I don't know, 1,000 people compared to 15,000, 80,000. It mentally got you ready for that. And also in England, in London in particular, there's always something going on, isn't there? Whether it's an appearance or a charity or training, whatever it be, there's always a pull in a direction. Whereas over there, you played rugby, saw your family, saw your mates, and then that was kind of it. Yeah,
so actually it was quite a nice transition into what became.
And it allowed me to properly move on. And I think when I came back as well, because we moved into a different house, I had a son, I had opportunities, it was very different. I think sometimes when you stop at your club, you have your summer off, and then you have your summer off, but then that first day of pre-season, you see on social media, all your mates go back to training. Yeah. And you're at home being like, oh, now it's kind of hit. And I remember that when I was captain, I loved going to speak to people at the top of the game and kind of taking bits of advice from them. And I remember I went to see Tony Adams, the old Arsenal and England footballer. Yeah. And he was like, oh, what are you going to do? And I said, look, I do a bit of this and a bit of that, and I've got some investments, but I don't do anything properly. And he said, look, that's the issue. Nothing you ever do is going to compare to running out in front of 80,000 people, 15,000 people, playing for your country, doing what you've always wanted to do. But it doesn't mean you can't have success and satisfaction and enjoyment and fulfillment. And that's the thing. And so many people say, how do you replace it? You can't. You can't. And that is the biggest
pointless
thing.
To try as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think when you first stop, you're always looking for that buzz. And look, unfortunately, you have to say that chapter of my life was amazing. Yeah. but that chapter's over.
And it shaped you for the rest of what you do.
Yeah,
well,
it does. And I think with that as well, and look, it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Of course, even now you have good days, bad days where the Six Nations is on or World Cups are on and you miss those big games.
Yeah.
But do you miss training on Tuesday when your shoulder's sore and it's raining and it's dark? No.
Yeah.
But you miss running out and that buzz. But that is irreplaceable.
No, I get that. And actually, talk about the training and the kind of the rainy days and so on. There was a discipline, like a regime for your life from 20 years old to 34. How much of a kind of discipline do you have now with regards to keeping fit and kind of almost keeping a structure to your day? Because of course you mentioned your dad, that changes things, right? That's a whole dynamic that is incredibly rewarding, but ultimately affects your kind of discipline and stuff. But how have you prioritized it? Do you still keep fit? Because you look fighting fit.
It's the biggest challenge in all honesty. When I was playing, you would have a 6-week schedule.
Yeah.
And your day is pretty much within an hour, very few changes.
Yeah.
Like I would know my Mondays, if I play Saturday to Saturday, my Monday, Tuesday's this, my Wednesday's off, Thursday, Friday's this.
Do you miss that?
I might have a dinner.
Is there any bit of you that misses it? Or do you embrace it?
I do miss a bit of, look, I'm a planner. And I kind of need that. And now I do a number of things. So my weeks vary. My week is never Mondays this, Tuesday, like we're doing this today.
Yeah.
Like last week I wasn't doing that. Do you know what I mean?
So you're kind of. Do you like that though? Because I like that.
I do like it, but I think you need to have some constant stuff. Because my wife is a singer and her world is completely freelance.
Yeah.
So it's all over the place. And she used to always say when we're chatting when I was playing, I was like, "Oh, what are you doing this week? What are you playing?" And I don't know about you or I don't know if you're freelance, but when you're doing stuff like that, to think it's almost exhausting and you forget a lot.
Yeah.
You forget what happened last week, and we have diaries on the phone, but I'm a writer, so we have a big kind of calendar at home where we both put our things on, and there's childcare and all that kind of stuff to work out. But I need to have something. You need to have something, and I think with me, and I think with a lot of us, you're competitive in different ways.
Yeah.
So you always, as soon as I'm quiet, and I say to my wife, "Let's go away on holiday and sit on the beach." She said, "Look, I tell you now, we'll do that for a day and you'll be bored. You'll want to do something." And I'm like, I take on a lot and then I do it and I'm too busy sometimes because it's like some weeks it loads up. And I'm like, "Oh, why have I done this?" But then the week after when it's quiet, I'm like, I'm bored. I need something to do. I need to pick up a challenge.
Yeah, but at least you've got that choice now. There was a certain amount of your career, as you say, which you embraced and you were successful with it, right? And bore fruit. But you're now your own, kind of destiny in your own hands, if you like, of what you choose to do. So it's managing it. And in context of being a dad, husband, and then choosing what to do. So you mentioned some investments, and I know you've got the foundation, which we'd love to talk about. How are you juggling that and kind of filling that planner up, but without being too busy that you're then like, what's my life become, sort of thing?
Yeah, look, I think one of the things firstly is, look, as a rugby player and someone who's played for your country, you've earned well, but you haven't earned enough to go sit on the beach for the rest of your life.
Sure.
You still have mortgages and kids' fees or nursery, whatever it is, and you've got to pay some bills, which is fine. So financially, there'll always be that kind of pull a little bit as well. So of course, you still have to be out there and commit to that. But also, like you said, and also now I'm away a lot on the weekend. Like this weekend is England, Scotland. I'm up in Scotland on a Saturday. So I'll be off first thing, back late that night. So
you just do the whole thing in a day.
Whole thing in a day, yeah.
And that's because you want to get back to
I want to get
family, right?
exactly. Want to get back,
like
and also otherwise you're away a lot. Like in a couple of weeks after, I do some stuff with a wine investment company. I'm going down to Bordeaux for 3 days.
Yeah.
So then also I've got later in the month I've got something with the RFU. So I'm away for a night as well.
So you're already forward thinking, saying, because I'm doing that, I'm only doing this. Whereas if you weren't doing that, maybe you'd have stayed the night and caught up with some people.
And also people always say, like, why didn't you go up and say? And I always say, look, it's still work. Yes, you might catch up with people, but it's not like I'm going up there with 5 of my best mates.
I get it.
And we're going to have a great day on the beer and we're going to have a boozy lunch and all that kind of stuff and great catch up.
I get that.
It's work.
It's related. Well,
it's enjoyable.
Complete coincidence, but we were at a do last night, right? I enjoyed it. You enjoyed it, but you're there because it's work in context. You've been invited or whatever, rather than the 4 closest people to you and we're going off to do whatever. And then it's like, of course, I'll do it as long as you want. Yeah, no, I get that.
But then there's other things, like I've been invited on a golf trip later in the year, so then I am going to be away for 3 days. Yeah, and that's going to be like amazing and great fun and all that again.
Yeah.
But that is work, but it's also kind of fun as well because there's a couple of mates doing it as well. So then it's kind of that balance.
Yeah,
and it's trying to merge the two worlds. And actually, when you go to Twickenham, when you do the corporate dinners, And as a rugby player, you're so close when you're playing, but then people move back all over the country, and everyone has their life going on. And then you get to these things and you actually catch up again. Yeah. And they're great as well. So the work do become kind of social gatherings as well.
Yeah, there's a camaraderie there that goes back. I mean, and also the other thing that kind of stands you apart is that you were a leader. I want to talk about that. You were the captain of your country. And in context of the bonds that you would have formed with those guys and the respect you get from that, when did you know you were a natural leader? And were you feeling that, or did someone almost pluck you out and say, you're captain, and you kind of went, oh?
Yeah, look, I captained a couple of teams at school.
So it's quite early then?
Yeah, but in terms of like captaining men is different. In terms of captaining, and look, I captained Harlequins at the age of 23. Okay. I was captaining people 10, 13 years older than me, who we have international experience, and all of a sudden it's very different. And look, I captained England and only my second appearance at the age of 25. And I also captained Quins for 4 years then. I then had a bit of a break, and then I captained them again, basically 9, 10 years later. And I look at that very well, and I think, you know what, when I was a 23-year-old captain, I was a very different captain to when I was a 33-year-old captain.
Of course, experience and maturity, right?
Experience, the players you're working with, things I'd been through, what people were like now, what rugby was like, and just how you get a message across. You learn, you've experienced. Like everyone always says, oh, if I knew what I knew now back then, I'd be so different, all that. And it's true, isn't it? It's
true though, right? Yeah, exactly.
It is true, and we always say it.
As long as you are learning.
As long as you learn,
you clearly were.
And that's the thing, and that you don't always get things right. And I think that's the thing you've got to try. And I remember, like I said, I'd love speaking to people. I remember I tried something and I got laughed out of a room. And look, as a rugby environment, it can be unforgiving.
Yeah.
But then I tried something else and it really resonated with people. So I think whenever you're a leader, you always have to learn, you always have to develop, but you've got to be authentic.
Yeah. And
you've got to do it in your style, because if not, people see through it. And for me, leadership, and I think leadership and captaincy are slightly different. I think for me, captaincy in terms of that role, of course, you always need to have a good group around you, but you can't dip in and out of it. I think it's a 24/7 thing. So every day you've got to turn up and you've got to be on.
Persistent and consistent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think sometimes as a leader, you can come in and you can have a good day and a bad day. And it's a luxury sometimes, because you could be like, you know what, I feel a bit rubbish. I'm just going to get through today. A captain, you can't do that.
No.
A captain, you can't do that. You're up there front and centre. And it was amazing. But also there are some downsides where it does take a little bit out of you.
Yeah, of course. I'm smiling because I'm just imagining you as a dad now. How old's your son?
Almost 3.
Almost 3, right? So still early, but that whole leadership experience you've had and captaining men and discipline and so on. I don't know what your childhood was like and how that was for you, but in context of the dad that you want to be and that kind of energy you've had as a player and the kind of results you've had out of people. How do you think that will turn into parenting sort of things? Are you going to be quite kind of nurturing and so on? Or is there an element of you that's going to have to not be like, don't do that, stop doing this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, everyone always tries to give you like parenting advice and all that stuff, and you just don't. It's trial and error, isn't it?
100%. And it's individual, right?
And I had a, like I said, he's almost 3. He's a terrible 2s at the moment. And I was in a self-checkout in a supermarket the other day, and he just, in the middle of everyone, ram supermarket, and he just had this meltdown. And this Kinder Surprise, which I was grabbing off him in front of everyone, like literally throwing himself on the floor. And I was just head down. I was like, just pack my, cause I still had to pack. I couldn't just pick him up and walk.
No.
So I was like, what do I do? And I just pack. But look, I think, you learn, you get things right, you get things wrong, and stuff. And
that's in itself is an amazing attitude. Like, it's that whole, like, I'm going to just be, I think, trial and error and try and be the best I can, right?
Okay, yeah, exactly. And you want to give them good morals, good support, good work ethic, all that kind of stuff. You want to be around. And unfortunately, my father passed when I was 5. So I always have that kind of thing where it is important. And everyone says, even yourself before, saying it changes quickly.
Yeah.
And I think, look, I'm in a lucky position with bits and bobs I do that I can have a little bit of time in a week.
Yeah.
And try and enjoy those moments.
But you prioritise that. And I think on the context of using that analogy of prioritising, you by default had to keep seriously physically fit to do what you did. How much of that do you choose to do now? And have you changed the kind of strength, fitness side, and also that mental side? Because you always had a goal, right? So you had a game that was like a focus, or pre-season, I'm going to be as fit as I can, I'm going to be fitter than last year. So without that, do you still get that kind of natural endorphins that you get from being fit, and then prioritise it?
Yeah, look, it's tough.
Yeah.
Especially now I've moved out of London, the gyms probably aren't as up to date as a local CrossFit gym that you get in every corner of London and stuff like that, which I like that kind of training, that kind of 45-minute hour intense training. Whereas where I work out now is much more of a leisure centre style, and you got to motivate yourself.
Yep.
You got to go there, you got to get on with things. My training is very different. In all honesty. I train now, and also mentally I need to train. I find if I go
That's what I wanted to ask you.
I look, if I go
they go hand in hand, right?
They do, and if I haven't trained, I get a bit like aggy, and I need to, and then it's hard to train. But once you train, you feel so much better. So for me, it's trying to also get a challenge. There are so many good challenges on Instagram, on the websites that you can just sign up to and just do. Like there's one I think in March where I think it's 64 miles in the month. So I'm thinking about doing that. Again, it just forces you to do something because at the moment I'm not accountable. And that's the easiest thing to be like, you know what, I don't need to do anything today.
No.
Whereas I think if I have a challenge, I'm accountable for it, and then I change. I completely, and my wife sees it. She's like, you just switch because I've got because then I'm driven. Whereas if I don't, it's easy to, like I said, we were at do last night, a couple of drinks, whatever. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, I feel a bit tired today. I won't go to the gym, and then
it's too easy.
It's too easy to pass.
And in that environment, does that spur you on more? Because I'm a bit like that. It's like, if, I stayed in a hotel last night, I still did my press ups and the things that I wanted to do because I'm not going to let it stop me. Have you got that as well? That whole like, not every. I get it.
Kind of for me, it kind of varies because my week is so all over the place. I kind of work it around that. So I might have 4 days on where I haven't worked out, but then I work out for the next 4. Yeah. So it just kind of varies like that, and then it's kind of on off, and I just try and piece it into your life. It's part of my life. And when you actually work out how many hours there are in a week, to dedicate, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours a week is not.
That's a really good point.
But it's
and how good it is for your
how good it is. But look, it is hard. People are pulled all over the place. Families, work, commitments. But for me, it is still important. Do I train anywhere near the level I did? No.
No, but I get that. You don't need to, but you're getting what you need from it to stay fit. It keeps you mentally kind of switched on and so on. And actually, it's really relevant in context of this conversation. By default, you've achieved a lot of success. But to be a successful sports person, you have to fail. You lose games. You have a bad game. Even if you win, you might be disappointed with your own performance and so on. And then there's the actual results, that by default determine success and so on. What's been your relationship with failure? And as a leader as well, you've got that natural resilience and so on. But there have been times I know, like 2015 World Cup, where you were just like, it just didn't go anything like how you wanted it to. How did you come back from that? And how did you come back from, say, injuries and so on? What's that process?
Yeah, look, it's tough. Failure is tough. Unfortunately, it is part of life. In a different capacity. There's no one who's gone straight to the top and stayed there in any walk of life. And people always say to me, if you could give a kid a bit of advice, what would you say? Or what would be the thing you'd tell yourself? And it's work on your resilience, because it's not easy. If you want to be successful, you've got to work hard. Yes, of course you need luck, but you put yourself out there. And the most important thing, and I say to leaders, they're like, what did you do differently? And I think one of the biggest things you can do, and it takes no skill, is you keep turning up. You keep turning up, and look, it's not an easy thing at times. And there was times when you want to look at yourself in the room and not leave or open the curtains. And like I said, 2015, it was a horrible time. I didn't want to go out. I mean, I think when you're in those kind of situations where you're written on the front and back of papers and spoken about on podcasts, it's hard to explain to people who haven't been through it. Yeah. And I remember, like, my friends, my family and everyone were great. And they were like, look, you'll be fine, it doesn't matter. But
did that help them? That in context, just having that support?
But they didn't really know what it was like.
No.
They didn't really know what it's like. And it's like it's a fog. It's like it's a fog. And over time, it just gradually clears. And it was when a lot of former captains reached out to me. And we spoke a lot and stuff, and it was about their experiences because they'd been there and done it. And I learned so much more from those people. And now if I see a young person going through a tough time, I try and reach out to them. But then it's on them to accept that. And that's another thing that at that point, I wasn't great at accepting that help.
No. But you still remember the fact that they reached out to you at that time. Exactly. It went in.
Yeah, and you remember all those people. It could just be a text message, could be whatever. And then it's down to you to actually say, okay, let's go for a coffee, or let's go for, I don't know, whatever, a walk or something like that. Yeah. But it's so
ultimately over time.
But you need people around you. No one's an island. No. People always think they got there by themselves, but they haven't. No. They might have done a lot of it by themselves, but they've had people picking them up. But at the end of the day, they need to be the ones who finally get up. I think. Yeah. As much help as they have, they still need to take a lot of responsibility and get up. And look, it's not easy.
It's good. It's great advice, and two, it's exactly what you did. And actually, to flip it, the success you've had: 66 caps for England, 300 appearances for Harlequins. I've got two questions for you. The first one is, what would you say is your greatest achievement?
Greatest achievement? Oh wow. I'm going to say from a rugby point of view, just so no one else tells me.
Yeah, I get it. It's always that whole, keep it on that
from a
career.
Professional point of view, I think captain in England. Yeah. Winning a Grand Slam with England, there's only ever been 13 Grand Slams for England, and you think about how long the Six Nations or Five Nations have been going. And look, we failed 4 times to get there. We came second 4 times in a row to try and get there, and finally got there, and you realise how special and hard it is. And England haven't done it since. No. And that was... what's that, 8 years ago? Yeah.
I was watching it. I'm a fan. It was an amazing achievement. So yeah, I wonder what you say, because I didn't want to cross into the family side of things as a
but from career. And then from a club point of view, I supported Quins as a kid. I had the top as a kid. Used to run around the garden, and to captain them to their first premiership. Yeah. And lead the side the way we did, because we were great for rugby at that point. We were playing exciting rugby. We were winning with a bit of steel about us as well. And that was a real moment where there was a good young group of us. We had a good group of experienced guys, and the blend of the squad was just great. And we had fun, but we worked hard. Yeah, we worked hard and we had fun. And of course, we clawed our way over the line, but we got there. And yeah, you'll always remember that.
Totally. And the second question on the same vein of thought is, how do you define success sitting here? And I ask that because you mentioned some massive successes there, but you've got perspective, you're reflecting on a career as well. And then there's the dad element as well now and so on. So just where do you go with that?
You always want more. You always want more, I think.
Especially when you're competitive and being in that environment.
I think I'm grateful for what I've won, but I always wanted to win more.
Nothing wrong with that.
And you want to be successful with what you go into now. And you can get success in many different ways. And people think about, do they do it daily? Do they want to be better every single day? Do they have the 1%ers? Whatever it be. And you can measure it. Could it just be eating slightly better? That's been a successful day because I've eaten well, or I've been for a run today, I didn't go for a run tomorrow. Yeah. So it can be measured in many, many different ways. But yeah, I'm competitive, and I always think, I love my time playing. Yeah. And I love winning, but you always want to do more, and you always wanted to win more. And even now with where I'm at in life, whether that be work-wise, professionally or socially, you always want to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, but that's part of your drive and your purpose, right?
Yeah, and look, and you have good days and bad days. Yeah. We're all human. We have days where we wake up and we feel horrible and we can't be bothered to go to work. Yeah. But it's about trying to do that. And that's when you need a good network around you, or 100%. Leaders, friends, families, I don't know, your kids, whatever it be, to push you.
And with that, so that there's a natural nurturing, almost mentoring feeling about you. And some of the experiences you've been through that you've ultimately learned from, how much you didn't enjoy it, let alone the absolute thrill and pride of walking out of Twickenham, captaining your country, right? You're giving back in the sense, and I want you to talk about what you're doing with your wife with the foundation, but also relating that to potentially helping others, potentially in the sport, the rugby itself. Is there a route you want to go back into when it feels right? Not necessarily a coaching side of things, just like giving back to the actual sport.
Yeah, look, I do a little bit with the RFU now. I did think actually when I first stepped away from the game, mentoring might be that kind of route.
You'd be really good at it.
Yeah, I didn't want to go down the coaching route. I didn't think that was for me. I didn't think my brain was that way in terms of that analytical and the skills. But I think with people, and like I said, through dyslexia and stuff, you learn different ways and different approaches. And like I said, as you get older, you learn that being a captain, being a manager is management. It's player management. It's people management is so important. And I think once you've been through these experiences, I love speaking to people who've been there, won, failed, whatever it be. They've done everything in between. Yeah. And I struggle sometimes to work with, and not in a disrespectful way, to whether it be a sports psychologist or something who hadn't been in the arena. But I really wanted to think, you know what, even if they say the message slightly wrong, I wanted to speak to who've been there and done it, and you know what that's like. And you can't beat lived experience, right? Yeah, you can learn from working. There's people that you said there's people that will know it inside out and be brilliant at it, but you've got the lived experience to relate that back from an empathy point of view. And look, maybe somewhere in the future something like that comes along. But at the moment, I'm not sure. And the foundation with your wife? Yeah, so me and my wife set up the Chris Robshaw Foundation. So we empower young lives and give opportunities to young children through music and sport. Obviously, my wife in music and me the sports side. Look, and we've been very lucky. Sports giving me the life I have and taking me all over the world and giving me the greatest honour playing for your country. But unfortunately, it probably all started when I look back on it. Unfortunately, when my dad died, and it was very much trauma recovery for me. And now it's about whether that be giving children confidence or social skills or structure or just that mental well-being. Or helping some kids get boots or whatever it be. So look, we're building. In the first 18 months, we've raised just about £200,000 for various causes around the country, whether that be from a singing stuff up in Scotland to supporting some rugby players down in Cheltenham to all over the shop. It's that's brilliant. Look, it's been fun, and we want to keep on growing. We want to keep on growing and helping. And I would love if we can raise £1 million in 10 years. Is my goal. And you know what, if I can do that, I almost think that legacy of doing something like that for so many individuals would be as great as the rugby. And I think the biggest thing is when someone said to me, "Oh, why do another foundation?" My answer was, because you can always help someone. And even if you just help one person, why not? And I heard this amazing saying. I love listening to these podcasts and stuff, and it was the High Performance, Jake Humphrey's brilliant podcast. I like that one. And it said, when is the best time to plant a tree? 40 years ago. And okay, when's the second best time to plant a tree? Today. And as soon as I heard that, I said to him, because we've spoken about it for 8 years, and I said, look, let's do it. We're going to get things wrong. We're going to probably run before we should even walk, but we're going to do it, and we're going to start helping people. And that's where we are now. We're just about to launch our Christmas do. I know it's a bit early for Christmas, but you've got to start selling it, and we want to be bigger than our previous one. You like to plan? I like to plan. You've got to plan it right out. And like you said, I need a project. I need a project because I'm accountable. If I don't sell that, it's embarrassing. You know what I mean? Your pride's at stake. No one's going to bet against you, though. No, but that's what I mean. I need something to do it. And look, we don't earn anything through it. Buy the odd coffee or get a train ticket or something like that if we're going to see a venue. But no, it's trying to use it for the good. Yeah, well done. Well, look, I'd love to talk to you for longer, but that's all we've got time for. Chris, thank you so much for talking. Brilliant. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you.